Okay. Folks, no rush. Go ahead and sign in and have a seat. We'll give you a few minutes. No rush. Go ahead and sign in and have a seat.
That's how delayed we are.
So you don't know what I'm going to say, but that sounded like at least a 30 seconds.
It's typically about 30 seconds. Oh, that's on this one's on.
Okay, cool. I was just making sure that like we were gonna have like technical risks.
No, we should be fine.
Okay.
I'm Carl. I just need one SDI and I use it. Okay, I'm not doing it. Okay.
All right, folks. We still got some people coming in, and that's fine. I appreciate that. Before I get into any kind of housekeeping, I want to say just an introduction. My name is Mick Thomas. I'm the Director for Oil and Gas and Mining for the Division of Oil and Gas and Mining for the state of Utah. I want to say thank you all for coming out tonight. Given the population size, in fact, we're in a new building, a little bit of a safety moment. In case of a fire, go out the door you came out real quick, all right? Let's go for this one, right? Or anything else. You want to evacuate across the street and just make a judgment call over there, but I doubt we'll have a problem. It seems like a pretty new building. This is a public comment session for the Juniper Canyon Mine. We've had these before for different applications that come in. That's okay. Given the interest in this, we made the decision to have it offsite in the evening so that folks could come easily and participate. I'm a big fan of having these public comment sessions close to the site, the location, so that folks who show up we can assume are the high stakeholders versus someone coming in from another part of the state or anything like that. We also have a number of people who have joined remotely via the Google Meet session. This whole thing is being recorded. And I'll also say that public comments are going to be received tonight. I'm going to limit folks to 5 minutes oral comment. It depends on how many of y'all stand up. If y'all stand up, well, it could be a pretty good meeting. We are going to end right at 8:05. And this is important. If oral comments, if you didn't have time or didn't pull together an oral comment, submit it in writing before 5 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday, the 6th, December 6th. You're going to send that in to oilgasmining@utah.gov. Is that right? Okay, good. I heard a sound.
You're right.
All right.
My bad.
It's those written comments are going to be given the same weight as any of the other comments that have been received. They're going to be given the same weight as the oral comments you make tonight. Normally, as the director, I'd be sitting there quietly listening to y'all's comments. This is an interesting situation because as I'm reading the comments and honestly reading a little bit on the internet and watching the different news stories, I realized there was an opportunity to educate and help folks understand what is going on. We also want to hear what your concerns are. Obviously, that's the core of tonight's meeting. Our public information team has pulled together a white paper, a sort of a fact sheet right over here by the sign-in sheet that you all can pick up and read. We've shared this with KSL. We've shared this with the Homeowners Association. It's posted on our website. There's a lot of good information there that I think can help us all get on the same page about what's going on over there. Before I get too much further, if you haven't signed in, that's okay. You can sign in during the meeting. You can sign in after the meeting, all right? If you want. I'm not going to force you to sign in. But it was an opportunity to educate. So before the comments begin, and we're going to go in person before we go to online. So for the folks of you who are online, hang in there. Before the comment session begins, I want to say this is a residential and commercial development operation. Just like these townhomes that are around here, this is a continuation of that project. They are excavating rock to make room for homes. As they excavate that rock, they sell it because it's in demand here in the valley, and it's a whole lot better to sell it or to move it where it's needed versus disposing of it in a landfill or something like that. I think that's important for folks to know. While it is parts of this residential development are operating as a mine, the larger scope is to put townhomes and stores and shops here to build the road through Juniper Canyon Road. Is that correct? To Mountain View. Thank you, Holly. It's part of the larger development there. And we've gone into a lot of detail into the fact sheet that we pulled together. But I wanted to put that out and let you know that for what it's worth, the oil and gas and mining division actually plays a small part. When this development was started, it was permitted by the city of Herriman. They got all the permits in line there. They got a conditional use permit from the county, Salt Lake County, to do this development. They followed the normal chain of the normal process to make this begin. we were initially moving rock and dirt and whatnot, sand and gravel, and selling it. It was just loose rock, basically, and they didn't need a permit from oil, gas, and mining. When they got into a little bit of the harder rock, some of the rhyolite, which is that is in a bedrock formation, that's when we evaluating, do they need a permit? Because this isn't loose rock anymore. And so we began the permit process with the operator. And they are in that process now. We set up financial assurances, which are bonding, so that if something goes south and the state, I'm a Utah resident, I just live in South Jordan, I was in Herriman until recently. So if they go south and the business goes under, the state has the financial resources to come in and reclaim that spot. I don't anticipate that happening because the residential and the commercial development is much greater than anything that the mine has to do. So that said, I'm going to probably sit down next to my counsel, who my attorneys are always really nervous. So if he looks kind of shaky, just let him go. He's solid. This is Carter. I'm going to go ahead and start taking comments. Is that fair enough? I don't know. I know my staff are here. I'm getting. And my staff, right? With my staff here, let me kind of tell you how this will play out. Y'all will provide comments, and I may invite my staff to answer questions that come up, right? If they know, and if they don't know, we will endeavor to get those answers. Again, I come back, having it here in a place where you all can come at a time that works for you, and I appreciate everybody in the evening. That's a level of transparency and public engagement that I want, and we're going to keep this going. So with that said, I'm going to take a seat, and no rush, but we have a microphone that'll go live in just a moment. You can come up and make comment, understanding that if you ask a question, it's really quick because I want to have some sort of structure to this comment session. Is that fair enough? All right, thank you. If you're going to provide comment, I'm going to ask you to walk up to the microphone.
Can you hear me? Thank you, guys. My name is Boris Kapelnik. You can see my accent. I'm original Ukrainian. Come to the United States in 2005. Senior manager in BD medical device company. We purchased our townhouse a year ago here, but I love this neighborhood. I move in a few states in the United States, and I tell you, I never see any operation so close to residential neighborhood. I understand you guys take some stones, sell them. I was here. I cannot walk in here on the street. It was dust so bad, I can see in a 5 feet on the summertime. It's first. Second, deep of this operation, you need to cover with soil or something to build neighborhood here. It's going to take you 20 years because it's all mathematics and physics. Again, I'm not really from United States, you can see, but I tell you, it's absolutely unacceptable for our neighborhood. We purchase these houses. We need to live here. We need to hear all these rackets, all this traffic, all this dust. You say air quality is acceptable? Absolutely not. I'm a medical, my educational, it's chemistry. And it's absolutely unacceptable. We clean, me and my wife, these windows 20 times almost per week because we cannot see nothing from dust. And we live 14712, which is close to playground. I can imagine what feel people who live close windows and decks to this operation. When I purchased this house, guys, and I check all, because I like to check, it was nothing say about mine. It was say it's gonna be beautiful neighborhood with a road go to, I can remember where, it's gonna be some stores, it's gonna be some single houses, zero about mine. Because I always gonna ask, A, if you have permit to do this, B, if it's safe for neighborhood, C, if it's safe to construction, because when people build here the houses, and again, not blame nobody, a quality of our houses, let's put this from 1 to 10, 5. I don't know what's gonna happen with these houses after you find not loose rocket, lava. What it's mean, it's you have to do something, what it's mean you have to blow out this concrete, like lava, to sell it. First of all, I don't know who buy lava in United States, but doesn't matter. I mean, I tell you one thing, when I read all this, it's absolutely unacceptable by me, my family, and again, if I need to do some legal stuff, I invest in my property, I invest for my kids, I invest for my living. I love Utah, love it. And I not like to have something 100 feet from my house and some development. If you do development, it should be documented. People, when buy house, this should become with purchase. This. Not give me right now, when everybody start figure out, oops, I not listen KSL. I live here. I start smell, my nose start run. I start cannot see nothing on the summertime. I ask my wife, what's happened here? And after this, we figure out, oh, we have mine here, 200 feet from house. I mean, for me, it's unacceptable. Guys, please, if you're thinking differently, let me know. But my house, fully unacceptable and good, it's documented. And believe me, if I need to go to city, Herriman City, I will go. If I need to go to Salt Lake City, I pay tax on this state. I work very hard. It's very hard to me make my money. And I'm not going to invest and 5 years wait. Maybe it's going to be the beautiful neighborhood in Dubai. I don't need this. Thank you.
I want to say thank you very much, and let's hope courtesy to everybody else. Well spoken, but let's try to keep it under 5 minutes. Watch the yellow number there. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
My name is Paul Butler. I'm speaking from a safety concern. Juniper Crest is the only road that we have access to. If there's something that damaged the bridge, we would have no way out. I was told by the city there's an alternate access. I believe it was right through the mining area. So if they've currently blocked that all off, so we have no alternate access as far as I know. So that needs to be addressed one way or another.
Yeah, I want to touch on a couple of things. One, my wife and I have multiple air filters all through our house that are Wi-Fi connected, everything else, constantly telling us the air quality on our house with all of the fans throughout the whole house that our air quality is awful, that it's unacceptable to even live in, and running at full blast all the time. On top of that, like we've had mouse traps here for the whole neighborhood because it's pushing mice into our neighborhood. And from the previous blasting, I have cracks through the basement cement in my house. So like there's so many different areas that, like, this is my first home. I bought this home when I was 26 years old. It was my first purchase, one of the first ones in this neighborhood, telling us that there's just going to be a road within the next year or two connecting. And now to find out afterwards that like There's an open face mine. There's not an open face mine to do a development. Look at the development on the side of the hill over here. Open face mine is because you guys found profit here and there's something to be able to gain from it that would make more money on top of then developing. That there doesn't need to be a mine and all of this operation to be able to do a development.
Hi, Kayla Pulsifer. I live in the middle of the subdivision. So I'm wondering who sent, I know that there was a gentleman on our Facebook page that posted a letter that he had received. He lived, was that you? So he had posted a letter that he had received regarding this operation. However, nobody else in the neighborhood received one. I live in Nash Lane. I'm in the middle. I did not receive one. Do I know why that is?
So thank you. And that's a good question. First, law says that adjoining properties are noticed. That's not proximity, that's adjoining to the property. I think, Brian, you may be able to speak to that briefly to address this, or someone from my staff may be able to answer that question. Here, come on up. Is there another mic? All right. Thanks. I don't want to put you off.
Oh, that's okay. I have like one more question
That's
after,
all
then
good.
we're
Hang in
good.
there.
Sorry to answer your question. Through state statute, our rules are written to where we only notify the adjoining properties and not the entire neighborhood. It's just by our state rules. That's the way they were written and that's the way we follow them, to be honest.
For sure. I think, you know, just coming as a resident that lives close to this proximity and other people have mentioned the issues that we've had, I feel like it would have been in good faith to notify us. I mean, we've been having blasts for the past 5 years, on again, off again. We have signs that say, hey, your walls are going to be shaking at 4 p.m. today, right? And so that would have been a good idea. And I feel like that's what has off-put a lot of people, personally me, in the community, because it kind of feels like an ambush, right? We're like, hey guys, we're going to have this road here. It'll be there soon, but we're not going to give you a timeline. It's been 5 years now. We're going to keep blasting your house. We're going to keep cracking your foundation and dust and affecting your resale value. I mean, it's a bummer, right? And so I personally am not happy about it.
And every time there's a blast notice, it says blast for future road, not
Yeah.
blast for mine.
Yeah, so I kind of feel like we've been like really cooperative, like, oh, absolutely, you guys can blast away when our kids are sleeping. And, you know, I'm a mother, I get it. And there's no road. And hopefully there'll be some residential things when. That's what I want to know. When are we going to be getting residential area there? Do you have a timeline?
So good question. And for clarity, the Division of Oil and Gas and Mining is just over the aggregate excavation and sale. The city of Herriman is the primary authority over this development. The Division of Air Quality is over dust. And don't you just love how the government's just bifurcated in 37 different directions here? That's one of the biggest reasons why we're recording this, because it's our hope that the other divisions and municipalities will review this and take it into consideration. I don't know that we've had I don't know as a state of all the agencies involved, if we've had this sort of engagement before on this project. So I'm happy to be here and we're kind of taking it with you, but I will say that please provide the comments and hopefully other agencies will pick it up. We'll definitely get it to them and let them know. Okay.
I know I said I had one last question.
Go
but
ahead.
I'm still good on time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so the other question I have is on the corridor. Those boys are kicking up a lot of dust, obviously. We talked about it, but on the corridor, there's tons of rock and debris. They fly out of there like no one's business, and they don't have anything covering their trucks, and it's all over the road, and it's just a mess. And so I want to know, is there a regulation of how often it needs to be watered down over here for dust control versus the amount of space in between a residential home that's already existed, right? I know that new builders have to occasionally water down. What's your guys' policy on that?
I do know that the Division of Air Quality within the Department of Environmental Quality has standards for dust control. Not my division, and I'm so sorry, I don't know that offhand. I would imagine that a visit to their website could generate that information for you. You know, maybe a call or an email or something.
Who would we call to report like on like dust or like these guys like South Valley? Like who would we report?
No, we're not. No, I'm afraid we're not. And I would say first visit Division of Air, or pardon me, Department of Environmental Quality website and go from there
Okay.
and see what you could find. What, again, what you all are saying matters, right? Go ahead, Dana.
If debris is getting on the road, the actual road.
Yeah.
So
Oh.
you don't have to get it back to her. What Dana said is the deputy director over mining. If there is dust on the road and getting into, it's on the surface, the Division of Water, Division of Water Quality would be the go-to there. And I'll own this as we aggregate comments and it doesn't partake to DNR or to OGM. I'll put to my team, we will get it to the people who have that authority and responsibility over that. Okay.
My question is, so it was, I think, 25 minutes. If you have so much time to make this public hearing with us, where's Herriman City? Where's quality people? Where them? It's that right now you blame somebody. This reminds me Ukraine and Soviet Union. We go and somebody blames somebody and we want a middle. If you have December 4th call us 2 weeks ago, why we don't see people what we pay tax for? Their salaries, it's my tax.
I'm going to ask you to slowly breathe and listen. We're here. I initiated this so that we can engage you in this process. Our staff does not have the time. We are not idle. And I don't have jurisdiction over the other agencies in any way, shape, or form. Okay, we did notice them, but they're not obligated to come to one of our meetings any more than we're obligated to come to them. But I want to make sure that I am not blaming anyone for this. What I am trying to do in answering these questions is, would you present questions that I don't have the means to answer? I want to provide resources so you all can help, or so that we can work this. And that's why I said anything that comes in that isn't pertaining to OGM, we're going to endeavor to get it in the hands of the folks who matter. I hope you appreciate that. Thank you. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, my name's David Taylor. I have a question on the explosive limits. What are the explosive limits? If you're doing the permit, there should be limits as to how much they can blow at one time. Okay, there's safety issues there.
We have learned and we know that explosions, specifically dynamite, is covered under the state fire marshal. I hate saying it. I don't know how the state fire marshal regulates explosions. Again, I'm a geologist. You'd think I know some of it. I do understand the safety aspect, but the letter of the law on that quantity and frequency, I don't have that.
Okay, what about their opacity? So the dust in the air, there should be somebody that's monitoring that. Would that not be on the permit? These are all issues that they want answers to, and they want the answers. They don't want to go to this person or go to that person. They need answers. Okay.
I appreciate that.
I just retired from being a supervisor over 5 different explosive operations. So I know a little something about this. I'm just wondering, who do they go to for the state of Utah?
State of Utah, if it's involving the explosions, it's going to be the state fire marshal. Use of dynamite is regulated by the state fire marshal. Air quality and dust is under the Division of Air Quality. And yeah, I mean, they're not here tonight.
Okay, so it's dynamite they're using, or are they using Perel?
Oh,
Or
I
are they
don't know.
using?
Do you know, Dana?
Yeah, it should be on.
Now is it working? Yes, they're probably using ANFO But yes, those limits and those blast plans would be under the fire marshal.
Okay.
And we recognize that it's frustrating to not have one authority to go to, but we do what we are authorized to do under the legislature. If you want to go to the legislature and maybe ask them to change things, that's where changes would need to be made. We have a jurisdiction that we stick to. And we do what we're authorized to do under the legislature.
Okay.
We do empathize and understand the frustration.
All right.
Yes, they have permits from the Division of Air Quality, and there is an opacity limit that they are required to stick to. And that they are actively monitored, but we do understand that, you may see that they're not meeting that limit, and by the time you may call air quality and an inspector can drive down here, that may change and they may not get a violation. It's something that's difficult for them to catch sometimes.
Well, it's not difficult for people to sign up for the class. It'll cost them $600 through OPASTEC. And they can get qualified to do the opacity up here. And if they're in violation, then they should be fined for it.
Yeah, I don't know if I don't know how the Division of Air Quality would react to that, if they would be able to write a violation based on someone outside of their agency.
If they're certified,
Yeah.
it's,
Anyway.
Yeah.
Air quality.
so that's my question there. And if the permit should state exactly what they're using, whether it's dynamite, comp B, Corel, whatever. Not just kind of a guess.
Yes, they are required to put in a blasting plan, and it does require that they list the type of explosives, the pattern, a few other things. That's what the state fire marshal has records of those, or should have records of all of those blasts.
All right. Next commenter. Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Philip Lund. I live off 4282 West Hemsley Lane. My question is, through these blasts, my foundation is cracked. I've got pictures to prove it from when I bought the house till now. And who's going to pay for that? Because again, if I decide to resale that, it's because of this. And that's my question. I know maybe it's not something you can answer, but what is my recourse?
You're correct. I don't have the authority to answer that. I'm not a building inspector or anything like that. I can say that home quality and those sorts of things, I couldn't even tell you where the first person to go. If it was my house, I'm calling my insurance agency or my insurance agent. I mean, I don't know.
But again, if we're not, how do I say this? If the blast is happening, that's causing a movement. If it's not happening, I'm not having that movement underneath that cause that. That's where my question is that, based off your guys' permit you issued, is there an insurance if something happens to anybody that's, whether it be on Garrison or any of the other?
Okay, so
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I can talk to that. The mine permit, the scope of the mine permit does not address residential or commercial or structural damage as a result of this mine permit. Now, the development, I would say probably the city of Herriman would be worth a call. Maybe the county of Salt Lake would be worth a call, and we'll get that information to them, by the way. That's a difficult spot that I just here and now, I don't have the authority to say one thing or the other. I appreciate it though.
And I respect that. Like I say,
Yeah.
I'm trying to be civil and not.
You are.
Because am I pissed? Yes.
I'm tracking you.
I'm ticked.
Yeah.
And I think everybody here is in that same boat. Whether it be through the dust. I mean, again, I'm having to wash my filters out of my, that's the other question is because of that dust, potentially our HVAC units could fail sooner. That, again, that's what I'm saying. Does any of that permit cover any of those? Yeah. All right.
My name is Suraj. Plus one to that question, I had the same question. My foundation is not damaged, but like if, for example, like our foundation is damaged and we reach out to the insurance, how do we even, like the insurance would most likely ask us, like, how can you prove that the damage was caused by a blast? How do we even go about proving that, right? And I think, I feel like part of like issuing the permit should have that coverage plan. Because I think like I used to live in Saratoga Springs, 3 miles from Fort Williams, and then I could still like we will still feel the quakes from that far from the test runs, right? But now that like our neighborhood is like so close to the blast, I think like his question is relevant to all of us, and I feel like unless we get his questions answered, I feel like the permit shouldn't be issued, right? Like there should be coverage plans, or at least the questions around like how do we even prove to our insurance that the blast caused the foundational issues or cracks. Like until we answer that question, it just doesn't make sense to me that like the permit should be issued.
I think that's a very good point. And I'll say permits throughout the state, from the city all the way up to the state level, even the federal level, are approved and denied based on the conditions that are put in the permit by the lawmakers. As you know, Dana alluded a little bit earlier, the legislature prescribes to our division, this is what your permit will and will not consider. And it enables us to say, okay, there's however many things down a checklist. If it's complete, there's the first thing we do. We do a completeness review, which we're in the process of right now. I think we've finished that completeness review. Now we're evaluating, do they follow applicable Utah state code and law? And if they do, it's all good. Mine, 6 a.m. every morning, same tone.
Yeah.
If they do, the permit will be approved. And if there are problems outside of the scope of that permit, we don't have the authority to get into another agency's lane. Do you understand what I'm saying? I can say personally, I just finished a home just north of here in South Jordan, and we were cleaning our filters every 3 days. It's beautiful living in Utah. It is beautiful, by the way, but the dust, wow. So I do hear what you're saying there. But the permit will be approved or denied based on whether or not the operator and the applicant fulfill the criteria that are in the application.
I see.
Thank you.
Is there nothing, so there's nothing we can do about it? So is there nothing that we can do about it? Or are we wasting our time here?
I would say, thank you, good question. We're in a spot where we're not going to provide legal counsel to a group in a public setting or private setting. Okay, we want to be neutral on that and evaluate the application based on the permit. Your comments that you're providing tonight are valuable. If for any reason, because we're going to disseminate those to the best of our ability to agencies who are addressing your concerns. Okay, for example, if many of you have mentioned air quality, okay, many of you have mentioned air quality. We're going to take these comments, we're going to give them to the Division of Air Quality so that they have that information to evaluate whatever they're evaluating. Okay, I want to make sure that we all understand that this is not just voices in the wind tonight, right? It's a good education opportunity for us as well to learn how to handle a single operation that touches half a dozen different jurisdictions, right? And we've put ourselves in the place of being I don't know, the head of this whole thing, although we're not, to help communicate it. But the comments that you're providing are helpful because, well, I come and I comment on things if I'm mad about something or want to help. So good comments. Go ahead. Next.
I have a question. Do you know roughly what year that mining started?
We're pretty close. Dana Turn Dana's on. She's ready to answer this. I am too, but go ahead, Dana. And by the way, this is Dana Dean, our Deputy Director over mining.
2017.
2017. So I read your fact sheet and I saw 3 facts in there. 1, there's a mining operation. 2, they have to get permits. And 3, that it has to be approved by the fire marshal. I came tonight, I didn't know if I was going to speak or not. But as I sat here, it kind of became clear to me that you guys don't really know what to do. And normally I'm actually on this side. I'm usually the one you guys are cussing out. So it became clear to me. And the reason I came is because even though I'm the one that's normally getting cussed out, this is very exceptional. I recognize that. I've been following it because I deal with this kind of thing, and it's intriguing to me, and I like to follow these intriguing stories. But as I sat here noticing that you guys aren't really sure what to do, I want to make one thing clear though. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a surgeon, but I do work in real estate and I do work in development. I have removed lava rock before, not to that scale, but I thought maybe you guys could just use a couple of suggestions on maybe some routes that you could go. One, I don't know if any of you are aware, but when you look on the county assessor's page, on the parcel map page, you can already see that there's a road outlined to go right through that gravel pit. Somebody touched on this, by the way, about maybe a safety issue. There's roughly 700 homes serviced by one road. I'm kind of wondering how that actually happened, because, you know, in 2006 and 2010, there was a big fire that came over these hills. And if any of you were here, you know, prior to that, I thought Hollywood movies were a little blown out of proportion. But when, you know, I saw people walking their horses down the street and car accidents in every intersection and a cop going that way and a cop going that way, which you think a simple radio call would fix that, but it was a mess. If you have roughly 700 homes in here and there's an emergency, there is no way 1,400 plus vehicles are getting out. It hasn't even been 2 years since we've seen people try to get out of a wildfire and a lot didn't make it. So that the reason I bring that up is the Fifth Amendment in the Constitution allows for something that this seems like may be ideal for. It's called eminent domain, where a government can take a property for the safety of an area or for the purpose of putting a road through. My thought is you guys maybe should be petitioning the city of Herriman about that. My next thought is, if you guys want an advocate on your side, many property owners actually don't realize it, but they have access to one of the largest lobbying groups in the country. It's called your local realtor. That's what realtors actually are. That's actually their value, is that they are a lobbying group on behalf of you. You know, the pictures and commercials where they hand you keys, that's cool, but they're really a lobbying group for you. If any of you guys know personally any realtors, you need to start talking to them. You need to start talking to them about the, you know, hey, how could the Utah Association of Realtors get involved in our behalf? Because their job at the end of the day is actually to safeguard and protect property rights. You should engage with them. So that's a couple things that I think maybe you guys didn't realize. You should be talking to the city of Herriman about eminent domain and exploring that. You should be engaging with the Utah Association of Realtors and the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, because their charter is to protect your property rights. And it seems to me, it has the appearance to me that your property rights are, it's questionable. You know it's questionable. You wouldn't be here, right? This is something maybe a little stinky's going on here. Maybe not. Maybe not. But yeah, and usually when it feels like it, it's because it is. At some point, humans are going to realize your gut is your first brain. This is your second brain. Your gut's telling you something's a little off. You should listen to it. I think you guys might do well to engage those two groups.
And my question is, we started 2017, maybe 2000, I'm the chemistry engineer, 2017. You say you're gonna find lava?
This puff piece is not, you don't need to excavate bedrock to put a neighborhood in. Like, you're telling me as they put Mountain View Corridor in, they never hit any bedrock and they just stopped for years to mine it? Come on, guys. Like, I hope you guys kind of organize and maybe engage those two groups.
Thank you so much.
I feel like I'm just going to echo, what we've all been saying, but I think that's the point of tonight, is for you to hear multiple voices, all with the same concerns, air quality. And I know that that's not, what we've learned tonight, that's not your division, but like you've said, if you can take that back to them and say, hey, we had a room of, 50 people that all are echoing dust inside and outside our homes, which is concerning that it's getting inside. Yeah, the environmental mice, whether that's coming from the blasting or not, it seems like it just as it's ramped up, but it could be weather, the concerns with cracks in the basement. We've had water coming through cracks in our basement that we've had to try and rectify. Is it from the blasting? I can't say for sure, but it seems like it because it's close, that's where I'm going to point my finger. So it's kind of just echoing what we're all saying. We're all concerned about basements. We're all concerned about foundations. We're all concerned about dust, air quality. And that isn't necessarily something you can control apart from the fact that you're approving this permit. And so that's something to consider in it. And you've got multiple voices echoing that. As far as questions go, he actually kind of touched on one of my questions at the end there is the blasting that you're talking about, this lava rock, is that required for future development? Or is that more so on the side of, we can get this lava rock out, we can make some money on it? Is it a requirement? Like, are they needing to blast that lava rock for the residential side and for the development side? Or is it more of a resource that they're able to get while they're already there?
So as a geologist, not necessarily as the oil, gas, and mining director, I can say that it costs money to move rock when you're trying to build a house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would assume that moving that rock is required to terrace the area so that they could put in the planned residences and infrastructure. That's as much as I can, that's my best guess. Saleability of the rock is all dependent on what's the market value at that given time.
Yeah.
And I don't know. But I do know that moving rock costs money.
Yeah.
When you're trying to build a house, it cuts into that profit.
Yeah.
So that's the best answer I can give you on that.
My thought, like in a non-educated thought, is this lava rock like surface level, or are they actually mining, digging for this to get this out, where we could actually leave it and still develop over the top? Honestly,
I haven't dug into the development plan that much because it's outside of the division.
Yeah.
I don't see why they would literally mine down below grade where they need it, but I don't have that answer. I'm
Yeah.
afraid not.
And that was like my biggest concern is the word mining got put out. So I think dig. And so it's like, what the heck are we doing this for? And then you say, hey, it's for future development. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm good with that. But at the same time, is it to dig or is it just surface level? And so that's kind of where my thoughts kind of go. And then I had another question with the blasting that we're already seeing. With this approval, say you approve this permit, does that mean that we're going to see significantly more blasting, or would it stay on the same level as what we're seeing?
They have been blasting on average about 4 times a year over the past 5 to 6 years. And it's, sometimes 1 or 2, sometimes 2 in a month, sometimes nothing for 6 months. That data is from the state fire marshal.
Yeah.
So that came to me from the state fire marshal. I have not, fair enough, right? But I'm just saying there's other explosive things going on with with that larger development by Steger Parsons south of here, which is not part of this smaller 20 some odd acre development area. Will they continue? You can only speculate, right? I know that the requirements of the state fire marshal are how often are you going to be blasting over a certain amount of time, usually 12 months or so, and they have to give an estimate to that. So, and Dana spoke to this very well. Having multiple agencies cover these sorts of things has positives and negatives. On the positive, you don't have one entity that's kingdom building, frankly, that could be easily swayed. Not me. I'm terribly stubborn, believe it or not. But when you diversify the decision process, you lose some efficiencies. That's the downside. So I couldn't tell you how much they're going to be blasting. I do know that if they've blasted, let's say once a quarter on average, once a quarter over the past 5 years, I don't know why they would ramp it up significantly. So it's the best answer I can give you right now.
Okay. Is that answer from the fire marshal, is that something that would be considered as you make this decision? Like say you went to the fire marshal, like you talked about going to these other departments and you said, hey, we had a question of how much more blasting is going to happen. And they say, hey, it's going to be considerably more. Would that be something that impacts your permit, or it's kind of, that's their division, so it doesn't matter to our permit that we're approving?
Good question. Again, as I said earlier, the permit's going to be approved or denied based on the criteria that they fulfill within the requirements of the permit. That said, I want to have a conversation with the state fire marshal and learn here and see what their plans are, because the state fire marshal is at least as fastidious as we are in tracking down these sorts of things. Fire is a big deal, and they like to be really careful about it.
Yeah.
Same with explosions. So while the permit approval is going to be based on criteria that's already been defined in the application, I look forward to the conversation with the fire marshal on this topic. I can't tell you what the outcome is going to be. Fair enough?
Yeah.
All right.
So it sounds like our solution kind of for our perspective is more, this is a conversation tonight, but we really need to be going to fire marshal, to air quality, and showing the evidence of, air quality that we're seeing, the home filter, the layers of dust on our vehicles, the clouds of dust, all that. We need to be emphasizing that with those departments more than the mining department, it sounds like.
That's one of the learning experiences that we've all had tonight, is a lot of times they're in these public hearings. And by the way, this is not a common public hearing, folks. Usually there's half a dozen people in the room. They're all mad because there's dust on their peaches, and I hear it and I don't say 6 words. But I saw the opportunity for a much more robust education back and forth.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate, especially some of the commenters who have come up and offered, ideas that I could not. Fair enough, right?
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and appreciate you all coming tonight. Seriously.
My name is Ryan North. So you guys are going to be completed with the next 5 years. Is that
Well, so you guys, you're talking about the operator.
the operation?
Yeah, we're just a lowly state agency. right? We plan on having this permit approved or denied within the next 30 to 45 days.
Are you guys going to be doing, you guys are the ones going for it though, correct? The agency is the one that's going for the material.
Oh, no, good question. No, an operator of any sort, so let's say it's a farmer or an oil and gas company or
Or
anybody.
Jay Wright.
Or Jay, yeah, they come to us and they say, we're building this and we need a permit per law to build it or to excavate or to mine. Can you allow us to do that? And we say yes or no. So the state, other than whatever sales tax may come off of the sale of the rock or whatever property tax comes off the homes when they're done, that's the only revenue going to the state. I don't see any of it. And nobody in here, we don't get paid a portion of, that would be horrible, right? Maybe in some other countries, but not in the US where I get a kickback if something goes good. So we don't see it.
You started in 2017 with no permit, and it's already 7 years. That's what I understand. Maybe I missed it.
So good point. Let's talk about that. The operation began in 2017. They were not excavating the type of material that needed a permit at that time. And so under Utah code, all they needed was a permit from the city, which they got, and a conditional use permit from Salt Lake County. And they were fully compliant. All right. It wasn't until they got into it. I won't go into the nuances of the different kinds of rocks because the code is very descriptive. What kinds of rock needs to be permitted in how that rock is excavated. So the operation did begin in 2017, but the criteria that we have, the threshold that kind of flips our switch, didn't come on until later. Thank you.
From my understanding, when people purchase houses, I purchased in 2022. From my understanding, people when purchase houses, they not thought it's going to be a mine. It's no mine operation. It should be development strategy. For us, it doesn't matter what they found. They found gold tomorrow. This doesn't matter for us, for residents, for where we purchase houses. I can tell you again, because I was in with my mortgage company, was a title company where I see development show road and residential development. Zero sign of mine. If you say mine operation started in 2017 with a crawling rock, regular rock, gold rock, for me, it started in 2016, mine operation, not residential. As you need to find guys where is this true? It was residential development for residential houses and road, what everybody agreed, or it was mine. If it was mine, I'm not saying everybody here will buy a house 200 feet from mine operation. I am positive because people check. For example, when people start doing practice here close to our playground, they say we build mountain road. We said, okay, mountain road, but not mine operations.
So thank you. Go ahead.
So my other concern is the walls that are on these roads because of the blasting are starting to deteriorate, as well as Garrison from the blasting. And they are blasting more than 4 times a year. Absolutely. We're up here. Our houses are shaking. On top of that, I have daughters that have lung issues. The dust that they put out, the mining operation that they're doing now is so bad that I can't even let my kids come outside. So those are my concerns.
So a few things. I can't speak as a citizen of that and also as a state employee. If someone sets off dynamite without a permit, there are significant and immediate repercussions that should be put into place. And so I would say this, in the event of a detonation as a result of this mine, if the state fire marshal doesn't know about that, they need to know about that as quickly as possible. Do you understand? Okay.
Because they put signs up right here at the front entrance every time they're blasting.
I appreciate that.
So,
Yeah,
thank you.
thank you.
Okay, so we've established they've been here since 2017. They've had their operation going on. They built the houses after the fact. Okay, so that these houses all were built after they've already established here originally. The fact is now all these residents are here. We have the problems of the blasting of the foundation. We have the problems of the air quality, et cetera, lack of exits, of course, with all these bodies. Now, I know it's really easy to give a permit to somebody who's already established. Why can't they go somewhere else and mine somewhere else? Really, really more simple. The fact of the matter is, if this was your house, if someone came to next door to you guys and said, hey, we're building a mine or putting a mine and we're blasting it multiple times per year, would you want that? The answer is no. If you say otherwise, you'd be lying to me, I guarantee. I appreciate your transparency with having the meeting. It's awesome. The fact is, you can say the law says that Garrison was the only one that needed to be notified. That's complete crap. Billings, which is a housing street right behind next to that development as well too, I guarantee didn't get any letters either. This blasting is affecting more than just one street. So that's complete BS there for sure. So the fact is, your job is to hear our complaints. We've talked about multiple times. We can each of us come up here and talk about how the foundation, air quality, which is really important. I have two girls that, once again, I don't feel safe having them as they're telling me, Daddy, I was scared. I'm holding them to my mom, onto my wife, as the house is being blasted. So why would we have a mine next to residential areas? That's in the question. You can say that it's to help the development future. I completely don't believe that, because the fact is you can do lots of building other places along the mountainside. They've done here and there. Why does it have to be done here? Go somewhere else. Their permit, even to be a quarry, should be gone. It should be gone. They can say that this road's supposed to be connected. They say 5 years. I guarantee they're going to find more things. They're going to expand their permits for other things as well too. This is not going to be 5 years. They can say that development's supposed to be done in 10 years. I called the city, talked to the person there as well too. They said, oh yeah, the developer who has the land here, he's not in charge of the Rock Valley. They're supposed to be building the road through that. That's going to be a bunch of baloney as well too. I guarantee it. So the fact is, they shouldn't be here. They shouldn't be here at all. Now that there's residentials here, they should not be here whatsoever. Kennecott doesn't have any houses next to their mine. I know they're mining other things too, of course, but the fact is, we are here. We're here now, not tomorrow and not in 5 years. Resale value, of course, all that kind of stuff too. So Mick, if there was coming to next to your neighborhood and said, we're putting a mine in, what would you say? Not as a DNR, as a person, as a father, what would you say? How would you respond, just as a citizen?
So I hope you understand, here tonight, I'm the director of oil, gas, and mining. I'm a geologist. My folks who know me are true. I specifically chose a house as close to the tailings pile.
We can't do that.
Kennecott as possible, because I'm kind of attracted to it. So I'm an anomalous person to ask that question of. I hope you understand. So, but I do appreciate the question. I do thank you for your comments. Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's pretty much it.
I just wanted to address a comment made by one of the guys about going in and finding people that's going to be on your side. I am a realtor, and I've been on the Government Affairs Committee of the Utah Salt Lake Board since 2015, 2005, I'm sorry. And I can lead and help anybody that wants to get with me to get to the board and get to the right people on the RPAC committee that can get that started for you. The best way to contact me is my website. It's BASDEN.com. BASDEN is my last name. Website, BENBASDEN.com. Leave a message. All my contact information's on that site. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Guess I originally made the Facebook post that kind of got this all stirred up. 6 years ago, I moved in here, Garrison, got the cracks on the thing. They didn't really start blasting until about 2020, I feel. But yeah, the cracks have gotten bigger. Originally, I was told under good faith from the developer Edge Homes that they'd be gone within 10 months after moving in. They're still here. I got hope when they started moving the rock separators down off there and the noise went away, but then September 7th. Could I get your email address so I know where to send the pictures of all the dust they're stirring up?
Oil, gas, mining, 3 words, oil, gas, mining at utah.gov.
Okay. Yeah, I'll be getting in touch with the Division of Air Quality. But I know the agencies really don't talk to each other much. I mean, I talked to the city planner back in October, Michael Malloy, and he's like, well, I didn't know anything about the mining expanding. And he told me to talk to the Public Works Department about the dust, which I haven't yet. That's on me. I'll be doing that and I'll be sending some pictures. And I'd like to get a hold of Todd Earl, my neighbor. He actually had pictures of him blasting literally like 50 yards behind our house one day. Say what?
Like earthquakes.
Yeah, yeah. It's just feeling like the whole thing gets up. But yeah, I'll get in touch with the right people and start pinging other doors on the air quality and stuff. But I know how government works. But anyway.
Cameron Trujillo. I have a series of questions and I recognize that you may not have all the answers. I guess before I start that though, how will you be following up on those questions that are not answered tonight with the community?
How the questions that are not answered tonight?
Correct.
So as comments are put in verbally, right, we'll be watching this transcript and there's a literally written transcript as good as YouTube AI can be, right? And so the questions that come up, we're going to send those out to the appropriate agencies, right? And we've got a 30-day comment period. Now, part of that for this process is for me and my staff to reach out to those and say, here are the questions that came up. For example, let's say for something that one of you bring up a question that the city of Herriman needs to know about. We're going to follow up with the city of Herriman and endeavor to get a response back and let them know, hey, this came up. What are you guys going to do? Right? I want to get as many people as needed, as many agencies needed on the same page regarding this development. Those questions as they come up, if I'm not able to answer them tonight, we will, if they fall under oil and gas and mining, we're going to answer them. Questions that are regarding dust, for example, the reality is we're going to put those to the Division of Air Quality. I know many of the folks over there, they care. Hopefully they'll endeavor to answer those questions, but they're not under my jurisdiction, so I can't make them answer it or something like that. That's the best answer I can give you right now.
Okay, so you will receive the answers. How will that get back to us so that we know what the different divisions told you?
I think I'll call it an audible and say that we'll create a subpage on the oil and gas and mining site regarding this, where our white paper is right now. Any information we get back, we'll post on there. That's the best I can do. Moving forward, I don't know. We're going to have a follow-up meeting with more than one agency following this meeting to see what the recommended next steps are.
Okay, so it sounds like some closed loop communication is needed for those things not answered today. And hopefully we can rely on you to get that website and things put together for that.
We will get it posted up. We'll get it stood up. Okay. And I also want to say again, any of you who made comments tonight, you're welcome to submit emails as well if you feel better writing things out, right? And getting it in by 5 o'clock on Friday. Normally what is that, Dana? Oh, Nathan, go ahead, sir.
My name is Nathan Schwabach. I'm a deputy director with the Department of Natural Resources. So Oil, gas, and mining is one of 10 agencies that fit within the Department of Natural Resources. I am a Herriman resident. We've been here for 10 years. I'm about 2 miles from this location. But real quick to that point. So my background is in communications, crisis work, especially. With this, I think where we can probably work is through the HOA as kind of a filter of information to be able to say, hey, we've updated, we have a series of questions that we've proposed to air quality or we've proposed to the fire marshal that came from this. And then we can notify the HOA and ask that they notify the residents. That might be the easiest way. I don't know if we collected email addresses. Did we? Okay, so we could also include, direct communication if you did include your email address, but that might be one way. What I've gained here, what I've really gleaned from it is there's a real stakeholder challenge. You have the city, the county, multiple state agencies. You have the developer, multiple developers. As I understand it, this is edge. This is an edge development, but what's being developed over here in the future is not an edge development. So there are multiple stakeholders here, and we'll do the very best we can to kind of coordinate responses where we can, where we have the ability to, and push those up. I'm thinking through the HOA, that might be the best way.
Okay, I appreciate that, but I have to also say I'm a little surprised, given the nature of what you all do, that there's not already a mechanism in place for that loop closure on these questions. Unless we're the first community you've ever mined in, which I would doubt that. So to get to the meat of my questions, the first one has a geologic and environmental study been done as part of the permitting process for this project?
I'll put that. I'm getting head nods from in the negative from my staff. Again, the assessment follows the criteria for the application, and if one isn't prescribed as part of the application process, we'd be beyond the scope of our authority and responsibility to ask for one.
Okay, so blowing up dynamite in proximity to homes does not require some sort of impact study on what could potentially happen to the area, is what you're telling me? If the
and that
permit
actually
doesn't
falls
require
underneath currently the state fire marshal. The mine plan, though, is evaluated, and the impact of the mine is evaluated as part of the application process. That's what I have for you.
Okay. In your experience, last question, in your experience with these sort of permits, what is the likelihood that this will be approved?
I cannot honestly answer that. This is part of the permit process, the public comment session. If the operator were in the room, they wouldn't like my answer any more than you are in the positive, the affirmative. And that is, I simply can't, in the back of my mind, no idea.
Okay. Do you have a ballpark
I'm still
for how
completely
many?
neutral on it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Do you have a ballpark for how many of these projects you've been involved with that have been denied? Like
That
a
have-
percentage?
That have been
If you-
denied?
Yeah. If you've done 100 of these, how many have been denied?
This is where I say I've been in the Utah for 11 months. And before that I was in Idaho, and before that I was in Hawaii and doing different things along these regards. The approval is determined by how complete the application is and whether or not all the criteria spelled out in their application are met. So if an operator meets all the criteria in the application for mining, then the permit would be approved. And I'm not speaking to this permit, by the way, but I'm saying if they fulfill the law, just like getting a driver's license or anything else, that permit will be approved. Now, there are other things that have been brought up tonight, as Nathan eloquently spoke to, that touch maybe up to half a dozen different jurisdictions and agencies. I can't speak for them. And I want you to know, I'm not trying to be vague. I'm trying to be totally sincere and tell you I'm not speculating on the outcome of this mine as the director.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm Paul Butler again. I'd like to expand on something I said earlier. The gentleman talked about not being able to evacuate the number of homes that are currently existing in this area if an emergency arose. There's a developer who was planning, I don't know if they've been approved or not, but they've they're trying to approve up to 2,500 more new homes in this area. I don't know how many, if you know about that, but the Juniper Crest Road extension is being blocked by the mine. And if we can't evacuate the number of homes in emergency today, it would just get worse if those additional houses are built. So that's something to consider. And I just have one comment. I'm not affected by the mine myself. I live across the road, but I feel it's not right for one group such as a mining operation to profit while they're causing damage to the adjoining properties.
Thank you.
So it sounds like, whoever determines the permit application meets all the criteria. If that is determined, then it sounds like it will be approved and all the concerns and questions that we've expressed here are pretty worthless, right? Sorry for the blunt question, but is that accurate?
First part, if it fulfills the requirements of the application, likely the permit would be approved. Now, that doesn't mean that this meeting is for naught. And keep in mind, the mining operation, the extraction of rock and sale of rock while underneath our jurisdiction is a small part of this overall thing. The folks who are, y'all here tonight are expressing concern about your foundation cracking, which does not fall underneath my division. It falls under, or the dynamite, which falls under the state fire marshal, or air quality. So there's a lot of different jurisdictions involved here, and having this pulled together and knowing that we now, as an agency, while it's not in our charter, we're going to go ahead and, as Nathan said, help with stakeholder engagement. That's a positive. You took a little of my thunder as a closing statement. Having you all talk here amongst yourselves, even up here, you all are solving problems that I can't begin to solve. Okay, so there's benefit to getting together and having these sorts of conversations. Because of that, this is not for naught. I don't know if that's, is that, okay. So I'll say that second of all, this is productive. Something, you guys can drive something out of this that you may not have been able to if you're all just chilling at home watching whatever's on tonight.
Yeah. And second question I have is like, you mentioned 30 to 45 days, the permit applications will be reviewed and either approved or denied, right? So you mentioned that within 30, yeah. So if like you need to reach out to several agencies to related to some of the questions or concerns that are brought up here, and if those are not answered within that time frame, would you still make the decision within the 30 to 45 days?
So we have a 30-day comment period, and this comment session is toward the end of that. Now I'm going to take 30 days after the final comments are to review the approval or denial of the application. I am going to reach out to other agencies, as I said, and make sure they know about it. What they do with their permit cannot impact the approval or denial in my shop because that's a government overreach. You understand that? So what I'm saying tonight is we're going to endeavor to reach out to these other agencies. The criteria that our approval or denial is based on is set in law, and we can make that decision within the next 30 days.
I see. Okay.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing? I live across the street. I have two clarifying questions that I think might be helpful. The first is the assumption that illegal blasting and mining has already taken place? Okay, referencing a comment that you said earlier, then the state fire marshal ought to know as soon as possible if there has been illegal blasting and or use of dynamite. Is that accurate?
I support that. Yep.
So you can Google the contact information for the Utah State Fire Marshal. Pulls it up pretty quick. And I think if we engage them with that and get them out here to evaluate that, that probably will help the cause hopefully drastically reading between the lines of what's being said here without them saying too much because they can't because they're a government agency. We need to talk to the fire marshal, let him know about that. Specifically, you know, those that this is impacting. So that's really what I wanted to say. And hopefully I interpreted that correctly. So thanks.
Thank you. Our public information coordinator, Officer Holly Brown, the contact information for the state fire marshal is on our fact sheet. On that fact sheet. Thank you. Go ahead.
So as I understand it, with all of the concerns that we have as residents, they don't really enter into whether this is approved or not. Is that correct?
Regarding this application, substantive comments impacting this application, for example, this mine, would be if someone came to us and said, they're actually excavating something they're not supposed to be excavating, or their reclamation plan is not accurate. There's a few things that we look at in evaluating of a mine permit, or, you know, the financial assurances are not in place, which in this case they are. They did put a bond in place to cover any future reclamation cost. Those sorts of things impact whether or not the permit is approved or not. So some of the comments tonight, I think, could impact that, but a lot of them, most of them have been around impact of private property, which does not fall underneath me, air quality, which does not fall underneath me. And I want to say it again, those are critical, valid points to bring up in any setting. So I appreciate that, right? But they don't fall under the mine application for a large mine permit in the state of Utah.
So in other words, you don't work for the people.
Well, that's a broad stretch.
It sure feels that way.
And I'll say that I am a resident just of South Jordan. I did live in Herriman. I do care and I do work for the citizens of Utah. Larger every day in our division, the number one goal is to protect the citizens of Utah against financial and environmental risk. We do that every hour of every day. The fact that the concerns that are being brought up tonight don't fall underneath our jurisdiction cannot be interpreted that we don't care or work for the citizens of Utah. We have a very specific role and we fulfill it the best we can.
As I understand it, the mining is already taking place without the permit in place. Is that correct?
The mining is taking place during the permit process.
Right. Why is that?
The first, well, and it's a good question. First thing we do is we say, in the event that you can't continue mining or that you can't continue this development, put in a financial bond to protect the citizens of Utah. Many agencies during the application process, especially in an operation that's far beyond a mining scope, will work with the operator to allow them to continue. This is a residential and commercial development that covers a number of years. It is not in the best interest of the community or the state of Utah to hold up something that's already permitted largely through the city of Herriman, through the county of Salt Lake, and other agencies because of one thing. That I do appreciate the fact that you're disagreeing with me on this, but I'm also talking law, and what that's not policies and process.
I understand that you're in this position. I understand that, but still, it feels like we only have 30 days before you make this decision, and our concerns will not be addressed in that time period. Correct?
I can't say if your concerns will be addressed because your concerns largely lie outside of my division and my permit, this permit. Now, there have been some discussions tonight, not picking out anybody, who have stood up and I think have had really good conversations and discussion amongst yourselves on best next steps that are outside of what I can say and what my authority is.
Okay, given that it's now a holiday time and we are just learning all of this tonight, I would say that we need more time to work on this before you make that decision.
I really hope. So here's the deal. If an extension is actually falls under certain criteria, someone would have to come to us and say, based on this criteria in your application, we need more time. If that was presented, and I hope folks understand, I can't give you ideas on that. But if someone came and said, we need more time to evaluate this based on the criteria in the permit or the application, then we would consider that extension. Now, an extension based on something outside of the scope of the permit, I don't have the authority to listen to that because it would fall under another agency.
Well, we purchased in 2021. We knew nothing about all of this, and we have not been informed about it since then, other than experiencing what everybody else has said, because we live on Garrison Lane. And my piano has more dust in it than any piano should have ever experienced. So I guess it just feels like we are being walked on, truly, because a lot of us did not know any of this until we actually received the letter. But I'm appalled that the whole community didn't receive that letter. I can't believe that. That makes no sense to me because we are all impacted. So there are many things that should have been done differently in this process. And yes, we were told the same thing, that a road would be put through and that the gravel pit would be finished within a year. And then here we go with more and more. So rightfully, we are frustrated. And we feel like our main concerns are not being addressed at this meeting. And I feel like maybe this meeting should have included representatives from all of the areas that address the concerns that we have. But I appreciate your being here and being kind and being good listeners. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mindy Montier. I live on Garrison, and I do appreciate you facilitating the meeting. As much as I'd love to be at home watching TV, I think researching all of these things and going to each of these different places and institutions and government agencies, trying to figure out and contact all of them, it spreads really thin and it's a full-time job on its own. And I've got a couple of those already on my own. So I do appreciate that this has been informative, that you included information on who we can contact. So I do appreciate that. I think that it felt like we would get, that maybe there would be some influence aside from some education. So it feels disappointing, although I know it's not that you came out here just to disappoint us. I do appreciate, because I don't think I would have known some of these things otherwise. I think that, we've taken walks down to try to talk to them behind us. We've reached out to Herriman City when they've changed the plan for what's going on behind us 3, 4, 5 different times. And we've tried to attend, city thing. I think all of us kind of feel stretched a little bit thin on coming to everyone to try to get information. So I do appreciate it. I think that we do have somewhere we can go now with this, and that means a lot, considering, just like everyone else, feeling a little bit jerked around with answers that weren't accurate, things that haven't come, roads and things that haven't been built that we were told would be built. I have tried looking, and I know Google exists and I can probably find it, but I would appreciate knowing exactly where to find a link, if you would, anything on how to find exactly what you're checking off on your permit, exactly what the application has. I didn't see that, but like I said, it's a lot to try to contact everyone.
So if you could help me know, because like everyone else, it feels like we'd hoped that there would be some influence. It felt like maybe reading about this meeting that there would be, it would have a say outside of just, you know, having a voice.
Go ahead, Dana.
We can add that to our fact sheet or whatever, but it's, if you Google Utah R647 rules and look for the large mine rules, those are the rules that we're bound by. And that's what we're looking for.
Okay.
And it's Utah Title 40-8 is the statute that we're bound by, but the rules are what we're using to check off. Did they do this? Did they do this? Did they do this? And again,
I'm
those are set by the legislature.
Mhm.
And we can't make changes to those. The legislature can.
Few things. Thank you, Dana. Council Carter, R647-4 specifically will cover that. All right. Link on our website as well. So a few things. Large groups of people in the evening matter first. All right. Don't underestimate the sway that you all have by coming here tonight. Please respect that I cannot show my cards, so to speak, as to what the outcome of this will be. Okay. So let me just leave that there. Fair enough.
Oh, all sincerity. Like, I really do
Okay.
appreciate you facilitating this, because now
Okay.
I think we do have a point
And
to
it,
go from.
and it is good. And I'm just going to hang on just a second, because I think it's the second comment. I'm going to ask, is there anyone in the room who has not provided a first comment tonight? Because if not, I'm going to let the folks online, give them the opportunity to say anything they would like to say. And then so you can chill right there if you want, or whatever you want. But I want to say, at this point, is there anyone online who would like to provide a comment? There's one hand up. Go ahead.
Andrea Lee.
Oh, I still have one more thing. Sorry.
Slow down.
The second thing I wanted was a
How's his
map.
head, by the way? That was a pretty good thump he took on the
Oh,
back of the head.
He's shy, so he doesn't like that I'm up here
Okay, go
in front
ahead.
of everyone. So my other question is, where do I find a map of where they're allowed to be? I mean, I've seen that, like, I forget their name, but this whole permit, this whole situation, if they violated anything, you know, like you were talking about with blasting when they shouldn't have been blasting, but also where they're supposed to be. I mean, they've come really close to our house recently with some of their machinery. And I'm just wondering, like, where do I see that map?
There's
How
a
do I not get
map
out
as
of it?
part of the application,
Yes.
right, Dana?
Oh, it'll be right there.
Yes, on our website, ogm.utah.gov, and there's under minerals, files, and just, you can put in the search term Juniper, and it'll bring up Juniper Canyon.
So let's make that
But
easier.
we can make it
Holly,
easier.
Yeah, is your building up? Go ahead.
It has a reclamation plan. You want to click on that link, and that has all, it's the permit, essentially the base plan. So pretty much we're trying to make it easy. You can have all of that in one spot.
Thanks, Holly.
Now, well, guys, I'm learning if you have additional questions.
Okay. Thank you. I just want to make sure that map was there too.
No, solid. Good
appreciate
question.
it.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
So now let's go to online.
Please stand by. Activating microphones for remote participants.
Hey, this is Andrea. Am I good to go?
Yes, Andrea, go ahead.
All right. This might be a little bit repetitive, but I do have a couple bits of additional context around some of these items. My name is Andrea Lee, and I live on this neighborhood on Garrison. Apologies for dialing in, but I have COVID and I'm doing my part for air quality. I listened to the state's comment at the start of this meeting. There's a couple of things that I know to be true. It's true that there is a development to add housing and commercial space, which is called Panorama, which is projected to begin construction possibly around 2 years in the future. This is the 2,500 home development that someone else mentioned. And South Valley Rock would lease or sell their property as part of it. And this Panorama project would include the construction of this road. I've sat through the city council and the planning meetings around this development. I would also suggest that my neighbors also attend these meetings if it's on the agenda. I don't believe, however, unless you have contemporaneous evidence of this, that the primary purpose of this mine is to ease the construction of a road. This road is going to be about 1/4 of a mile. This mining operation has gone on for 7 years and it's not stopping. To be honest, that statement reads to me as rationalization, with the idea of a road maybe being somewhat easier when the mine sells it in the future to another developer. I do not believe that this was the primary purpose of the mine, and I would be very curious as to whether there is evidence to this effect. In the meantime, as people have mentioned, there are regular explosions with no recourse for the damage it's doing to these homes. As several other people have already mentioned as well, this neighborhood is 200 feet from the edge of this operation. This is just fundamentally far too close to residential areas to have a mine operating. It's fully known that loose dust from these pits causes fibrosis, which is progressive, irreversible scarring of the lungs. Usually when it comes from these pits, it's referred to as silicosis, which is a subtype of this. When you're exposed to this over long periods of time, the Division of Oil, Gas, and Mining might not control air quality, but you do control allowing this mine to continue operations. So fundamentally, I feel that this comment does pertain to your division. I mean, we can be referred to the ends of the earth, but at the end of the day, it's your job to license this mine. And you mentioned that your responsibility is to ensure that this operation is following Utah law. I don't understand why that would not extend to following law in all elements of the mine's operations. It really ought to be the permit grantor's requirement to liaise with these other agencies as needed. Saying that this information is basically not really relevant to your decision just doesn't make sense to me. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Who do we have next? Anyone? Is that it online? Everybody else just viewing?
Hi.
Okay, go ahead. Stuart?
Yeah,
Is
my
that-
name is Stuart. I want to know the fact sheet is available online or not?
Yes, we put it in the chat.
Yeah, the fact sheet is available online. Thank you, folks.
Put the link in the chat.
And the link is in the chat for the Google Meet as well.
Okay, I'm listening many comments from the owners. I want to know, so some questions, some concerns is not handled by your division. Could you give a list or suggestion which division handles our concerns?
So I picked up which division handles our concerns. Is that,
Yeah.
That's your question?
Yeah.
The Department of Environmental Quality, their division of air quality handles the particulate matter, the air clarity. The state fire marshal covers explosive detonations. The damage to foundation is not covered, to my knowledge, under a state agency. It may be covered under the city, perhaps. I'm speculating there, though, as far as structural impacts go. And those are the majority of the concerns I've heard tonight.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else online? All right, we're going to go back to folks here in the room. Go ahead. Thank you for your patience.
I actually feel like I'm now defending and more addressing us as a community. He's said it so many times. We're attacking the wrong people. These guys have specific things within their permit that we have not addressed in our concerns. It sounds like specifically, like if they're getting the wrong rock, then we can address this permit, but we're never going to know that. And so we're never going to address this permit. But we do need to reach out to, as the gentleman next to me said, Herriman City. We need to reach out to Herriman City and say, why are you approving this close? We need to reach out to the Department of Air and say, you're not monitoring this close enough. And here's our evidence. We need to reach out to the fire marshal and say, you're showing a statistic of 4 or 5 times a year. We live here. That's not the truth. And here's our evidence to it. And so kind of my resolution, it feels like, is maybe David with TruePoint could help in assisting us as a community, like you did for this meeting tonight, to say, hey, community, here's a letter. We all want you to sign it, and we want it to go to the right division. And it seems like, as I'm very appreciative that you've come tonight and you're willing to address this, but our concerns don't address your permit. And so it's great that you're here, but we need the other divisions to be here. We need that conversation with those divisions. And I assume even though a permit's issued, it can be revoked. And so if air quality isn't right and the blasting isn't right and the Herriman City cracks in our foundation, if that's not right, then they're the permits we need to be attacking as a community. This one's a hard one to get, revoked or non-approved because we don't know what rock they're pulling out there. Yeah.
We just discussed this 2 point. My question is, again, I'm so logical guy, it's killed me every time. 2017 mine, different stone, got it. Don't give permit, got it. 5 years permit. It should be done by 2022. 2017 plus 5, 22. We see today on public hearing with guys, which is again, not again from the 0. 2 years from 0 permit, operation continue. They maybe found something beautiful for business. I got it. And right now they need to get permit to get all this out, but it's 7 years and it was only for 5 years. What's happened with this 2 years operation with no permit? Right now, my opinion, it's illegal operation. You 2 years, we pay tax in properties close to this operation, which has no permit to operate. Continue to blow, like lava, I don't know what they blow. Right now it's 2024, and my field got here. I just that hearing because it started public. KSL involved, people start posting on Facebook. It looks like I say, we here because it starts smelling not right. Because if it was no public in KSL, or it was not in Facebook, it's gonna continue like nobody knows. That's the biggest line I get hurt because I'm unknown, like we don't know what's happening. We received on Facebook this note, everybody start complaining, we start call, I call to Herriman City. I send notes, like you guys send note petition if you agree or not agree, we every disagree, we agree. And right now it's come on the surface because they need to get the deal to continue business. Guys, it's not gonna give 5 years, I tell you, because more they give, more they found. I mean, look at what's happening across on these mountains. It's a huge mine. You say they close for something? I don't think so. I was like, you're absolutely correct. We need to go for Herriman City. It's nothing you guys only define. We just need to go Herriman City and say, I'm resident Herriman. I pay tax property. I have a valuation my property and you protect my property. If I lose 5 of my property, I'm not allowed to give permit. Or we start paying tax property. I don't try to be chaos or something. We need to find what are our rights. I'm resident Herriman, I pay tax property every year, and I love my city. But I need to have some, live in good environment, not 200 feet from mine. Right?
Yeah.
Just think about this. If somebody is in South Georgia and start to put shooting fire for artillery, for national guard, you're gonna live there?
Yeah. To the gentleman sitting next to me, was it Nathan? Sorry. It sounded like you might be higher above these divisions. Communication side there, maybe. Okay. Is air quality in those ones under that? No. Okay. Okay.
Like Nick said, we'll liaison with those.
Yeah.
Hopefully they're able to answer the questions, but there's no harm in reaching out to these other entities yourself.
Yeah, and I think our biggest takeaway is that the fact that you are here, you're just an additional voice to us. We can all go to these departments and say, hey, we've got this, but we actually have government that has come out here and has sat down with us and are also now able to go from the backside and say, hey, they got legitimate concerns. And I watched 50 heads say, yeah, they blast more than 4 times a year. Like 1 or 2 people maybe don't believe it. You got a whole room saying that count's not right. So now we've got support from the backside from other divisions, hopefully, to also say, hey, your permits may be in question. Ours, they're covering ours, but you may want to consider yours and look into yours, do more site visits, do whatever you need to do. And I think that's just my biggest takeaway is we need to be talking to these other divisions. We appreciate you being here tonight. It sounds like yours will be approved, and it's because of things that we can't control, which is fair. But we need to be looking at these other permits and trying to revoke those permits or providing the evidence to show our filters and our basements and our whatever are all being damaged, and that falls under their permits, and we need them to take some action on that. I'm hoping TruePoint and the board could maybe help with that. That's all I got.
I got a few, thank you. I got a few statements. Go ahead, sit down. I got a few statements. First of all, you brought up a revocation of a permit. When a permit is granted, there are conditions within that permit that must always be maintained. And that's why we have inspectors. All of the agencies that we've talked about tonight, even the city of Herriman and the fire marshal and Division of Air Quality have inspectors that go out. And if those conditions are not met, the reality is the agency and the division quickly tries to tell the operator, hey, you need to get into compliance quickly. And if they don't, or there's a repeated sequence of violations on the same areas, well, then we issue cessation orders, which is stop. And we issue those, well, I don't want to say frequently, but yeah, frequently, statewide, because our role is to protect the citizens of Utah first. So once you get a permit, it's not, woohoo, boarding, isn't it? Thanks. It's not just free, right? We are paid and care about going out and keeping folks in line. It's in the best interest of the operator, frankly, even more than us, but we care as well. And I also want to call out, is there a member of the homeowners association here? Is that what, now, step up and introduce yourself just so I know. Management company? You don't have to provide comment. I just want to have you on the.
No, my name is Dave Dunn. We own TruePoint Management and manage this HOA for Sky Ridge.
Okay, thank
and
you.
I tried to make sure you had a place to meet.
Thank you very much. And I'm sure Holly and other folks knew it already, but I hadn't met him yet. So thanks a ton. All right. Do we have anybody else online?
Director, there are no other raised hands. Microphones are active.
Can I ask a question? I was on YouTube, so I ran here for my first question.
You look like you could run. Good job. Go ahead and make some comments.
It's a short way. So based off of our sort of conversation, well, I guess I want to start off by thanking you to coming here and standing in front of a group of semi-angry to very angry people and sort of taking the heat, right? But we talked a little bit about the criteria that must be met. Well, we haven't specifically spelled out what criteria, but essentially the companies that do this operation have to do sort of nothing more and nothing less than that criteria. Once they've finished it, there's nothing else they have to do. What can we do if we feel that those criteria aren't really protecting our sort of health and safety in our houses and things like that? Like what things can we do to maybe change those criteria if we don't feel like they're addressing our concerns?
Good question. I've got a couple of answers. First, the longevity of a operation. The reality is they live and die by public perception, right? So social licensing matters. And the most successful companies I've seen, not that this company is or isn't, endeavor to get ahead of these sorts of things. Okay, that's my experience. I don't have a dog in that fight, but I've seen that successful ones endeavor to get ahead of these sorts of things. What can individuals do if they're like, you know what, blasting needs to be under oil, gas, and mining because dang it, when we go to a meeting, I want answers and I want to know responsibility, right? The process if it's a state organization, is to notify your local representative or your local senator for the state of Utah via writing or phone call, email, and say, hey, this matters to me. I'm not happy with what's going on here. I need help. And every year the legislators get together and they talk about a whole bunch of stuff that all starts with folks like us. Okay. Now I may get a call from the legislator at some point. Well, thanks a lot, Mick. You blew up my phone. Well, no, I'm not trying to do that. I'm just saying that's the process. That's what I follow. Yeah.
I see. So maybe a follow-up question. So in your experience, possibly the biggest thing you've seen that's fixed these sort of issues that we're seeing is, to put it bluntly, making it a PR issue for the company, and then they sort of like have to address the concerns or face blowback from the community kind of thing?
That can be effective. The last part I said is the best solution. All right. Because if you're able to change the law to improve the law, you help everybody from that point forward versus just kind of lighting up a certain operator. You track me the difference there?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So we'd be helping other people besides just our
Nathan, go ahead.
Yeah, real quick. And the state's legislative session begins in January, towards the end of January. And some of your local representatives are Candace Perucci and Wendy Gilmore. And I think, there's one or two more probably missing, but I don't know, but that, it's quickly approaching. And those are the representatives who can help. If there are parts of the law that you feel should be addressed, I would reach out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Good run. Thank you.
I just have a question on the application process, because we've talked about how they have to fill out the application, then you approve the mine or not based off of that. I was trying to read over the reclamation page that's on the link. Maybe it's because I'm trying to read a 270-page PDF on my phone, but it kept crashing. Are there things in there that talk about the air quality or the blasting or anything that has to be, I don't know, approved by these other places as part of the application? And I guess if not, why not?
So the first question I'm going to defer to my deputy director, because I'm doing the best I can, but I'm 11 months on the job. She's been here for a little while longer. So go ahead, Dana. Not too much longer. All right.
No, we require them before they begin mining to have those other things in place, but they're not required to have them for us to review. So we don't have jurisdiction over those things. So we don't say, oh, we have to review and make sure that the air quality approval is good. But we do say, before you begin mining, you have to have all other federal, state, local permits in place. So our permit is not the be all end all. And for that reason, we don't, make sure that all those pieces are in our approval.
Are there checks to see that they have put these things into place?
Yes, if we're out on a site inspecting, that's one of the things that we'll often do, is make sure that they have their other permits in order.
Okay. One last question. How long is the permit? Let's say it gets approved, right? How long is the period that it's approved for? Is it indefinite or
Yes,
is it?
it's forever unless they do something to get it taken away, or which often, when we have to take a permit away, it's because they've stopped paying permit fees and they've stopped maintaining the site, or they've mined outside of their boundaries. Somebody else, where can we see the map of where they're supposed to be mining? They've done something really wrong, and we'll go to our Board of Oil, Gas and Mining and ask to revoke their permit, and that often is granted. And then we'll go reclaim the site. But if they're an operator in good standing, they can keep a permit forever, as long as they keep the surety up to date and pay permit fees.
Okay.
And we escalate that surety every 3 to 5 years to keep up with inflation. So if someone wants to keep in suspension and not mine for 50 years, that's their financial decision, but they have to keep those surety payments up and keep paying permit fees and keep the site. They can't have a site that's falling apart and suddenly, there's erosion and things going off site onto other people's property. So they have to maintain the site as well.
One last question then. If it's indefinite and they decide that they want to keep going. Is
Right.
this mine that we've been talking about tonight, is this a means to an end, or is this meaning the development that we've talked about? Or is this is the new mine now, it lives here?
Again, this is, our part of this is a small part.
Right.
And earlier people were asking, are they going to dig deep or are they just, what are they doing? Right now, what we have approved as a mine plan is what they need to do in order to implement the plan that they have approved from Herriman City. So if they suddenly wanted to stop mining and be in suspension for 5 years, Herriman City would have to say, wait a minute, that's not what we wanted. And then something hopefully would happen on that front where they would say, you either need to have a different developer come in and develop this, so it wouldn't
Right.
necessarily be us that would say, you can't just idle this operation and leave it as a, an ugly pit or whatever. It would probably be Herriman City doing that, but it's not something that likely we would be able to come in and tell them to keep mining or do something different. It would probably be some other entity.
Awesome. Thank you all for
Thank
being
you.
here, by the way. Appreciate it. First, I want to just commend you all again for being here, you and your team for doing this. I think it's very abnormal for government departments to do stuff like this. We'll have perceptions of how government offices work. I worked in one for a number of years. I know what some of those perceptions are, but seriously appreciate you doing this. That being said, going to your application process, how much weight, if any, do these public comments hold in that application?
The public comments hold a lot of weight. I'm here tonight and listening, and I'm going to be very meticulous in the review of this application. All right. And the public comments received help encourage a thorough review of the application. That's what I can say.
Cool.
All right.
Appreciate that.
Thank you.
You may not know this answer. Are you aware, and we can go look this up as well, do you know if on the fire marshal's website, if there's anywhere that we can look to see, hey, here's what they've proposed and have said they're doing blast wise, so that we can compare for the rest of us? If you are on the neighborhood Facebook page, I know in the past a number of people like, hey, there was a blast notice put out to kind of correlate and see if those things match up to help build some of that evidence. Do you know if there's something that we can access?
So I might want to ask my staff, if I say something wrong, throw a hand up. To my knowledge, it's not readily published online.
Okay.
However, the marshal is a state agency. It's subject to public records requests.
For sure.
We reached out to them just like any of y'all or any of us will, and said, hey, can you give us the documentation on this? And they produced it.
Perfect.
Is that accurate,
That's
guys?
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
And can I say something about the value of the comments tonight?
Yes, please.
I just want to say, again, we empathize with you and we understand your frustrations. Again, we're bound by the laws that we have, but I want to say I have several people from my staff here that work on these, and whether these public comments will hold up the permit or not, seeing people here that care about their homes and are concerned about things, it helps us every day to go back and remember what we're doing our jobs for.
For sure.
Because, sometimes you can just feel like we're pushing paper and, and everything starts to seem the same to us.
Because you have bounds you have to work with it.
Right.
So it's easy
And
to
everything
just-
starts to
for
seem the same, but then we can remember, no, we're doing it for these people that, are passionate and they care about, the environment and their homes and things like that. So it does make an impact. I want you to know that this does make an impact. And if you gathered this group of people to talk to your local legislators, I know they'd listen to you.
For sure. Thank you. Last thing I want to say is just to the rest of the community, for those of you that are here, it sounds like we're going to need to all talk a lot more here in the next little bit. I want to encourage all of us, if you're not already on the neighborhood Facebook page, find it, look for it, find one of your neighbors that's on it so you can get the invitation, get the link, whatever, so we can continue that conversation there as well, continue things in the future. Come to the HOA meetings as well on a regular basis. I've worked with Dave, just being a member. I was on the board for a couple months as a fill-in. They're fantastic to work with. They're here to help us. So encourage all of us to continue doing that and have more turnout like this on a regular basis. Thank you all again. Appreciate it.
Yeah, like everyone else mentioned here, we want to thank you for your patience and empathy. One thing that really baffles me is, like, given how close the mining operations are to the neighborhood, are there like no distance requirements in the permit application saying that the mining operation has to be at least this miles away, like either at a federal level or a state level? Because that I find that really confusing.
No, it should be.
Yeah. So
That would be the same city, same Herriman city issue. Permit for mining, not intermediate. Operational mining and residential property. Same Herriman city. As like they should have some kind of distance between. But they approve it. That would, again, we need to speak with Herriman City. I like to meet with Herriman City like we meet with the department. It's perfect. Meet with Herriman City. We residents of Herriman City. They serve us, guys. It's not like they serve us. We work for them. They serve us. We need to meet with them and say, guys, same department, same city issue mine and issue residential. What do you guys thinking? How are we gonna live together like 200 feet from each other? And if you guys gonna issue permit, then it's gonna be forever. I mean, what volume of our houses right now?
Let me speak to this a little bit. In other states as well as Utah, those are called setbacks, distances. Those are primarily and usually set by the city or the county. Rarely will a state come in and say we have these setbacks.
Okay.
Because we do defer almost all development administration to the local community. And frankly, the state can do more than the feds can. The county and the city can proportionally do even more. So those sorts of setbacks, you're right, normally fall very locally because they're based on very local circumstances. In West Box Elder County, you don't need a 200-yard setback for anything, right? But here, they matter, which is why they're set usually by the city and the county. So I want to affirm that.
So like, sounds like Herriman City doesn't have any of those requirements set.
I
right?
don't know. I just don't know.
He's saying that they do,
They have setbacks.
but
But we don't know what.
we don't, it's mystery. Okay.
I see.
What they are.
Okay. Yeah, because that sounds like the first requirement that is just like deny this application if it were to be submitted, but okay. Yeah, thank you. That's helpful.
All right. I'll be real quick. I know we're about to close. This may have already been addressed. I stepped out for a second, but I appreciate y'all sharing the statutes and regulations. I actually looked those up. I was just like Zach, they were kind of crashing a little bit, but I'm looking at the impact assessment, which is Utah Admin Code 647-4-4-109. Now, that maybe, let me know if that's the wrong thing I'm quoting here, may not apply to y'all, but.
You're good. Thank you.
Okay. So in section 4, it mentions that let me read this opening statement. So the operator shall provide a general narrative, description, identifying potential surface or subsurface impacts. This description will include at a minimum, and it has 5 bullet points here, but the one that I'm most interested in is number 4, which says projected impacts of mining operations on slope stability, erosion control, air quality, and public health and safety. So my question is, what is y'all's parameters for that to satisfy that requirement? What is there impact? Or do you guys have, or does the operator require to hire consulting firms that assess that? Or what is the assessment for the public safety on that?
I'll say thank you for that, for clarifying, and I'm going to defer to our deputy on this. Dana, if you could speak to that.
This is very controversial. We have been told that our role in public safety is extremely limited. And so and if there is another agency that covers something that we are to stay away from it. So I don't want to bring up, what happened or where this came from or anything, but we've been clearly told by both our board and the legislature that if there is a public safety concern that is covered by another agency, that we stay out of it. So we have a very limited scope where we can look at public safety. And so that's our staff stays within that very limited scope. So if it's blasting and it's covered by the fire marshal, it's not us. If it's trucks that are licensed on a public road, that's the highway patrol. Access in an emergency, that's not us. I mean, so yeah, we have a very narrow scope of public safety.
Let me build out a little bit. So thank you, Dana, and she is correct, and to follow that. It's complex to have multiple jurisdictions all claiming authority over something. And for example, let's take air quality into consideration. The Division of Air Quality has a robust, skilled staff that is more than capable and trained to address this. While it falls underneath that permit for us, we don't have the staff, and so therefore we are told, and rightfully so, to defer to the folks who know the most. So why is it in our language, so to speak, to encourage and require that communication? To encourage and require that communication, because if that team over there totally misses it, then we do have something to fall back on and say, hey, can you please have a look at this air quality issue? It allows us, it requires and thereby facilitates interdivisional, interagency communication. I tried to spell that out as succinctly as I can. So while I don't want, frankly, someone from, I actually like Herriman City, but someone from the city and telling me you're doing your permit wrong. I mean, well, what? But I do appreciate the narrative of maybe, if I got one of those calls and I haven't, I'd call Dana up and say, man, what are we doing? I just got this call. Well, we need to look at this. All right. So there's the reason. That's why you're going to see it in multiple places. The state, we need to make sure we don't overlap regulations, right? Because now we're just wasting time and money. How's that?
No, that works. But I guess my question is, where does if it's very, you guys are kind of handcuffed and you don't want to tread on other agencies, where does the due diligence lie? Where exactly? Like, where does who dictates the due diligence? Who does the due diligence to dictate that public safety is satisfied in this mine, right? And that it's not just being rubber stamped by the DNR or by Herriman or by whoever else, right? That's my concern. And then who dictates that? And how does y'all's review process look for that? Is it just a rubber stamp for y'all because you guys have such a narrow window, or a narrow purview or review period for that, or ability?
No, we definitely don't rubber stamp things. We have a very skilled technical staff that spend the appropriate amount of time reviewing these things. But let me give you an example of where public safety would be our job, and where it was our job. Some of you all may remember the Crandall Canyon mine disaster. When that happened, the underground part wasn't our job. There's a Mine Safety and Health Administration. But after that happened, water was building up in the mine behind the seals. And we found out about that. And there was a concern that that water might overtop and break those seals and flood the county road. So that was our job, to warn people and call the sheriff and block off that road, because we knew about what was happening in that mine. And we knew that if that blew and someone was driving down that road, they could get injured or killed. And so we needed to make sure that the public was aware of this situation. And then we needed to make sure that the pressure was off from those seals and get the water out safely and get the water flowing out of those mine seals, which we did. And then when the public safety issue was over, we reopened the road and there was no problem anymore. That was a situation where public safety was our issue. Things like that is very narrow again, but that's where public safety would be our concern. And we're not trying to pass the buck or anything, but again, there was I don't want to rehash things, but there was an issue where we had a public hearing on a permit, and our director at the time listened to the public and tried to put some he thought were reasonable conditions on that permit. He told us, you know, you can approve this permit, but do X, Y, and Z. And he was told, you can't do that. That's not your jurisdiction. And that's where we were told, public safety is not your purview unless it is not covered by another agency. And that was a big kerfuffle. Again, we were told by not only just our board, but the legislature had a hearing where we did not feel great during that hearing or coming out of that hearing. And again, he was just trying to be reasonable and compassionate and put some things that he thought were practical and reasonable in place, and was slapped down for doing so. So we were very clearly told that is not your job if somebody else has jurisdiction over it. And we have learned our lesson.
Well, so thanks, Dana. And I want to share some realities as the director. If our division sees an issue with air quality, that air quality is not resolving, we have a chain of command that goes all the way up to the governor. We will exhaust that. All right. Now, we're not calling the governor every 37 minutes because something is sideways. You understand that. There's levels of holy cow, right? If we are in that situation, I'm telling my staff this as well. If we're in this situation, I'm gonna go to my boss, my deputy director, and say, hey, this is going on. And he'll report to the director of the Department of Natural Resources, Joel Ferry. And if needed, Joel Ferry will talk with the director of environmental quality, Kim Shelley, and say, hey, we've got an issue here. Right? So you escalate it appropriately until the problem gets resolved. Hard problems go uphill, right? I don't know if some of you have heard that. I live it. And if for whatever reason, the DEQ and DNR are not able to resolve it, it could go to the governor's office. Highly unlikely. All right? Folks are really good at solving problems, but ultimately it could get that high. That's the way it's supposed to work. And I could say that I'll endeavor for that. I don't imagine, while we're here talking about it, that we're going to have that sort of problem, right? Because we can fix things. Now I respect, you know, Dana brings a lot of institutional knowledge. And if the board says this, we follow board direction, right? But I can also say in my relationship with our boss, my boss, Nathan, I'm going to say, hey, this is going on. And I know him well enough so far that he's going to say, yeah, Mick, let's try to fix it. All right. So there's a good answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, I just worry that, and I appreciate those answers. I understand there's a lot of liability, a lot of problems that the state can put themselves in by overstepping their bounds. I totally understand that, and same with the other agencies. My concern is that the public safety, that bullet point 4 is quite ambiguous in terms of what the public safety is all things being considered in that assessment and in that approval, right? I mean, I don't know who, you know, we've talked a lot about cracks in basement walls and floors and things of that nature. Is that a novel experience with mining this close to a residential area? Is that something that's being considered? Is all the impacts being looked at? And that's more, I guess, what I want to know. And that's probably what we need to direct to the other agencies as well. So
I think the biggest one is going to be, I like this guy, the outer guy. He said, I just focus my life. In our job, safety is number one. Right now, what we need to ask, they close this road, there's no escape.
And that is
We have 0 roads. Right now, it's always this one, which is absolutely not viable, because if everybody starts driving, I mean, it's going to be big traffic and we're going to stop here. It's like, probably we need to speak with Herriman City and say, Maybe you're gonna do something more complex. Then I'll make sure we can avoid.
Agreed.
We need to discuss about safety. As I said, it's gonna be a very good way to not, it's not big area. Or we have exit or not exit. Let's say, show us exit. Only this room. So it's not acceptable because you have the amount of residents that each room. How many residents you have? Because look at what's happening in our plaza, right? Same. They build first of all plaza and buildings, and after this build roads, so everybody stay 2 hours in the traffic. When it's fire, I know that somebody wants to be in the fire. I live in California, North California. I know exactly how people work away from North California.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. I know
Any
I've
other
kept you
questions? Go ahead.
Oh, I'm good. I know I've just kept you over 10 minutes, but I echo everybody's appreciation and thanks for y'all coming out. So
Thank
I know
you.
said 8:05, so
So, well, hey, you know what? I mean, I'm not going to be that guy, right? That's a good way to get followed to my truck. So, but I will say, are there any additional comments anyone would like to make here tonight? In that case, thank you so much for coming. We appreciate it.